Here we are on the front of our Entegra Odyssey. We're going to do a tutorial walkthrough on here like the technician would give you on the date of delivery, going through some tips and tricks along the way and showing you the operation of the components that are on here. If you want a deeper dive on these components or others that may come in your unit, you can find that under our HAPS Helpful Hacks section of the playlist under Great American RV YouTube channel. We're going to start here in the front, of course, under our hood. We do have all of our engine components and everything. This is an E450 chassis right here. So we're going to take a look, and we have our chassis battery right here that is going to operate our engine. And of course our engine, our air breather, all of our fluids, just like you would normally see under any other vehicle. This is where all that's located: oil dipstick, transmission fluid. All of this stuff is going to be customer maintenance. You need to keep track of your fluids, your air filter, all that stuff. Whatever the suggested maintenance is from the manufacturer, you need to take care of it as the customer. All right, on the driver's side of your unit, you can see we have our side camera. We'll have one on each side to help us changing lanes. We have our generator exhaust right there, and we have our generator. Now we do have a cover on that generator. We need to make sure that cover stays on it whenever we are running it. That way the airflow in there actually cools the engine. If we have that cover off while we're running it, it will not cool properly. Now we can remove that cover on there. And we can see we do have a gas prime button on there. We want to prime that generator up before we start it, and then we can hit our on off, and that'll go ahead and start up that system. You also notice a 30 amp breaker on here. This is our main breaker on that generator. If for whatever reason it faults, you'll have to come over here and reset that breaker to get it turned back on. That we would know because obviously we wouldn't have any power in our unit. We want to check our main breakers on the inside first, then come over here and check this one. We do have an hour meter over here on the side to keep track of the hours, so we can also keep track of our regular maintenance that needs to happen. The 3 bays behind our generator have storage, but our second one is going to be our connection for our 30 amp service plugged in over there. We want to make sure that we turn our AC systems off and stuff every time we unplug and plug in our unit, so we're not causing surges to those appliances. You do have a little lid right here we can open up to run that wire through, and then we're also going to have our coax port right here for cable from the campground and a 110 outlet as well. This is one of our low point drains right here. That'll have to do with our winterization. We'll touch on that in a little while when we get to our water valves. All right, out here we're going to have our city water connection, our black tank flush, which will have to do with our dump station. Have our hot and cold on our shower, of course, where we would fill our water up. Then we have our levers right here for our water right inside the compartment as far as what we want to use: city water connection, tank fill, so on and so forth. We're going to go over a little more information on that right now. All right, so we have our valve assembly right here. These 2 valves incorporate with these 2 valves right here. Now our city fixtures, that is meaning that we are hooked up to that outside city water connection we talked about with a hose from the campsite. We turn that water hose on, we turn the city fixtures, and that's going to run water to all of our faucets and everything on the interior. Our city fill tank, same thing. We have the water hooked up to the city water connection. We're at our house. We want to fill that fresh tank. In order to do that, we're going to go to the 1 and 6 positions up top, and then we turn that water on, and that will begin to fill our tank. We can monitor how much water we have in that tank whenever we get to the inside. Now keep in mind, this does add more weight to your unit. If you don't need it, dump it. We don't want that water to become stagnant. It's also adding, like I said, more weight to our unit. So try to be conservative how much you put in there if you want to. It will make a difference, and we'll show you where that drain for that is here shortly. Our country fill sanitized tank, that is if we want to sanitize our fresh tank. We would go ahead and hook a water hose up to that city water connection, turn to the 1 and 4 position, kick on our water pump, and we put that other end of the water hose in a mixture of bleach and water. We can fill that tank and sanitize that system. Normal flow is going to be, if we want to use the water pump, which would be water from our fill tank that we did, we would go to 3 and 5, kick on the water pump, and that would pull from our fresh tank out to our fixtures to be able to have water if we don't have a city water connection. Last one is sanitize and winterize our lines. We showed you that low point drain outside. We would drain all the water out of our low point system. Same thing, hook a water hose up to our city water connection, run it to a bottle of RV antifreeze, turn it to the positions 2 and 4, kick our water pump on, and that will pull that RV antifreeze into our lines. Now we do have more information for winterization in our owner's manual, as well as a few videos on our HAPS Helpful Hacks. Down here we have our black and gray tank dump station. This is where we would hook up our water hose to our dump station at the campsite. We have our black handle, our gray handle, that's going to signify the 2 tanks. Gray is going to be shower and sink water. Black is going to be sewage from our toilet. If we have a port at the campsite, we can go ahead and leave our gray tank open all the time. Showers are going to fill up fairly quickly. Let that water drain out. Of course, if we don't have a station at where we're at, we'll have to wait till we get to a dump station to dump that out. Our black tank, however, we need to leave that valve closed all the time until we're ready to dump. Because we're putting solids in there, we want to make sure that there's always water in that system so those solids don't dry up in there and get stuck in our tank. So whenever we are ready to dump, of course, we have our hose connection. We pull that black tank handle, let everything start flowing out. We go to that black tank flush up there, we hook our water hose up, and we let the water start running. That's going to lead to a jet port on the other side of that tank that's going to help push everything out and flush out your system. When we're satisfied with flushing, our tank's empty, we turn that black tank flush off, we close this valve, we go on the inside, we hold down the pedal to our toilet, we add several gallons of fresh clean water in there and drop our chemicals in. While we're traveling down the road, that water that's in there will help kind of clean that tank, bring some of the sediments to the bottom. Your chemicals are going to help degrade that stuff in there. You can flush it out again if you want. Add more chemicals whenever you go store it. Now, this is how the owner's manual is going to suggest to do it. We do have some pro tips in the HAPS Helpful Hacks section. You want to check that one out for black tank flush. More importantly, just make sure we are keeping water in that black tank so that stuff doesn't solidify in there. On the rear of our unit, of course, we have our backup camera right here. We have a receiver hitch, 7-way plug, and tow hooks where we can hook up our chains for a trailer or a towed vehicle, whatever the case may be. Your bumper does have black caps on the rear. We can pull those black caps off and store sewer hose in there if we like. We also have more storage right here in the rear that's going to lead to those 2 back outside storage compartments. Now we can see because of our slide out back here, we have no factory supply ladder to our roof. You do have a fiberglass roof up there, and you're going to have sealant around all your vents. You still need to gain access to that roof and check your sealants every 60 to 90 days. Your owner's manual is going to tell you that, and it is owner maintenance. You want to make sure you're getting up there, checking all the sealants around all of your vents. You also want to check the sealants down your trim on the sides, slide outs, camera, doors, everything. You're going to have sealant around all that stuff. We're looking for cracking, peeling, deterioration, anything. Want to clean it, reseal over it with the proper sealant. If we don't do that, we're allowing water to get into our unit. Manufacturers aren't going to participate in that kind of repair. Whether you keep it under a cover, in a barn, whatever the case may be, make sure you're checking that sealant on a regular basis so your camper can last for years to come. Of course, on the passenger side, we have our awning. Let's take a look at that. So we're going to have our 12-volt awning with our 12-volt awning lights. This is all going to be off of battery power, right? Keep talking about 12-volt appliances throughout your unit. We're going to lead you eventually to the 12-volt fuse panel on the inside, where we would go to look at some of the fuses that control some of these 12-volt components. First place we would go to diagnose if we're having an issue with some of those things. Well, let's talk about our awning for a second. Our awning is mainly a sunshade. We can have it out for a little bit of rain, but we want to make sure that water doesn't puddle on the top of our awning. We may even get condensation from our AC runoff on there. May also get light dew, stuff like that. Want to be able to make sure that water can run off. So that means we need to either lean our awning to the rear or to the front. In this case, we're on the rear. Both awnings awning arms are going to be the same in the front and the rear. All we have to do is grab this arm right here, give it a shake, pull it down, and now our awning is leaned over to the side. That water can drain off. We're ready to roll that awning in, push it up, ready to go. Now, the thing about our awnings is if we do leave it out during a storm, high winds, anything like that, it gets ripped off, it falls down. Something of that nature, it's going to be an insurance claim. So if you're leaving your camper for an extended period of time, you see a storm coming in, whatever, roll that awning in. Rather be safe than sorry and have to pay that high deductible from an insurance claim. Notice right below our awning tube up there, we have a vent. That's for over our range. If we want to ventilate air out while we're cooking, we need to make sure those tabs are open so the air will ventilate out. We go to store our unit, you have the option to close those tabs, keep any insects or rodents from building a nest. All right, beyond our awning, we're also going to have our side camera right there to help us once again with changing lanes. We have our entry door with our steps right here. Our steps can go in and out when we have that, when we open and close that door. We have another switch here on the inside we can flip, and now those steps will stay out whenever we open and close that door, so you can choose which one you want to use. When we hit that ignition and crank up the engine, it is automatically going to pull those steps in and override that switch. So keep that in mind too, just in case you forget. Let's detach you here and let's take a better look of our other compartments here. In this one, we are going to see we have our Go Power controller right here that is converting our solar power into charging power for our battery system. You do have solar up on the top of the roof. We have our Dometic furnace right here that is to, of course, heat our air, and our Dometic tanked water heater that is LP and electric. We'll go over the controls for both of those when we go to the inside. Down below that, of course, we have our propane tank. We have our gauge right here. This is where we fill it. This is where we bleed out air. And this is where we would turn it off and on. Of course, whenever you store your unit, it's a good idea to go ahead and shut that system down. In our next compartment, we're going to have more storage, and then up top, of course, we have our outdoor TV. We do have outdoor speakers on this unit. Talked about our low point drain on the driver's side. We have two more in the second to last compartment. All that has to do with the winterization that we had talked about near our water valves. You can find more information for that, once again, in your owner's manual. We do have a quick connect for our LP system right here at the bottom for an outdoor grill, and of course that bigger storage there in the rear. As we enter our unit, we're going to notice a latch on those steps. Open that up and we can see we have our battery system. Now, this is going to be our batteries. They are wet batteries. Now these are wet batteries. We do need to pull the caps off, maintain them, make sure the water level is at the proper height. We're also going to notice that we do have a little breaker in there. We can see it with the little blue button. That is right there. That is a resettable breaker. If it ever trips, you want to come in here and check it. That is going to be for our hydraulic system. Also going to have our battery disconnect in here, function by the switch that we'll go over here shortly. And these ones with the red caps right here, these are thermal resettable 12-volt fuses. They will reset on their own after they cool off. If they are overamped, they'll heat up and disconnect that 12-volt circuit. Just got to give it a little bit of time. It'll click and that system will go back to working. As we come into our entry, of course, we have on-off switches for our interior lights. We have our exterior lights, which is our awning lights, and they are dimmable by that little slider there. Our awning in and out, and then that disconnect that we talked about that's under the steps by the batteries. Now we flip that, that cuts off the 12 volts to our unit. We generally do that when we are storing the unit not plugged in. That way we're conserving that battery power. Anytime we're plugged in, whether we're using it, storing it, whatever, if it's plugged in, we want to make sure that switch is on so our converter system, which charges our battery, is connected to our batteries and we can actually charge those batteries while it's being stored. This on-off power step switch, that is for those steps that we talked about if we want to leave them out all the time or if we want to reverse it and have them go in and out whenever we open and close that door. 110 outlet, we have our Go Power controller right here. Talked about the one outside in the compartment. This is the one that will tell you, this is connected to that and will tell you what the values of the voltage coming in from your solar panels are. We have our RVCO and LP alarm right here. It does have an audible alarm. We need to check it whenever we go out camping. We'll also notice the expiration date on here when we need to change it out. And then we'll notice a little green light at the bottom letting us know it is powered up. It is hardwired into your battery system, so it's going to be powered on all the time. We're also going to have smoke detectors in our unit powered by a 9-volt battery. We need to check the audible alarm on that as well and check the expiration too. And lastly, we do have our leveling system by LCI. We'll go over more information on that right now. All right, so we're going to go over our Lippert auto level system. On this unit, our ignition is required, so that means we have to have our engine on, emergency brake on, and we would just go to auto level. It would begin the auto level, and we want to make sure we're not moving around in our unit whenever this is taking place. Otherwise, it will throw off the sensors whenever it is leveling, and your unit isn't going to turn out very level. Once it's complete, of course, it will notify us auto level is success. If it gives you any failures, it'll let you know that too. Now, if we go to our home screen, that is generally the first screen that's going to pop up when we're ready to retract our jacks. We just hit retract, everything's going to come down and automatically retract. We need to make sure this is complete before we hit the road. Right. We have a couple other features on here. If we hit our menu button up at the top, we have our manual mode. We can extend the front, extend the rear, and our sides if we want to manually level our unit. We can also use this after it auto levels. If we have some slight tweaking we need to do, maybe our bathroom door is just slowly closing up, we want to pitch our unit over to the side to keep it from doing that, we can certainly go in and adjust that manually. You do have an app that we can download. It will be via Bluetooth on our system. We'd go ahead and have that app downloaded, connect Bluetooth through our phone, and we could actually operate our jacks. Our calibration is based on which end of the vehicle we are facing. This screen is facing the front of the vehicle, so we would click that. We would then choose a level reference point. So our floor, our main floor area, we'd take 4-foot level, put it out there, and then on the next set of screens to operate the jacks to level that point front to rear and left to right. So it would bring us into our manual level. Basically, we're going to manually level our unit until we got that 4-foot level into that perfectly level position. Then we would hit confirm level, and that would confirm our new 0 point. We only want to do this if we find our auto level is not hitting the right spot. It can happen. Rarely is this system going to erase your 0 point leveling that's there. So this is only if you ever have to go in there, tweak it a little bit because it's off for whatever reason. Sometimes low voltage can cause issues with it, but generally if there's a problem, it's going to give you an error code on here and let you know. We're going to see attached to our frame under here, this is our LCI hydraulic pump system. This is to operate our leveling jacks on our unit, and it is a 12-volt operated pump. There are some override instructions for that, and you look forward to those videos on Hap's Helpful Hacks at some point. Make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss it when it comes around. So it is a 12-volt operated jack system. It's only going to work with your ignition on, and of course your battery disconnect as well. We showed you where that pump system is. You can go diagnose through there. We will have some videos up that covers these types of systems. Up above our kitchen counter, we'll see our control center here. It has our hour meter for our generator. We have that prime option here. We can hold down the stop button to prime that generator, then flip over to start it. We have our 2 slide out buttons right here. We have our rear bedroom slide, which is Swintech, and then our other slide is going to be an above floor mount slide out. We have videos for both of these if you want to take a look at them in the Hap's Helpful Hacks section on how to override them if something ever happens. We have our tank heaters right here. This is a 12-volt mat that's attached to your gray-black tanks to help heat them in extreme weather. Have our water pump here. That water pump will pull from our fresh tank and supply water to our water fixtures. Now, if we have a city water connection hooked up, we don't need to have that water pump on. And we want to also understand that this is an on-demand pump. So it's going to run every time you turn your faucets on, so it's normal to hear that vibration. But if you're sure all your water is turned off and you hear that thing running, want to check and see if our fresh tank is empty. And if it is, of course, shut that pump off so it doesn't burn up. But if it's not empty, we might have a leak somewhere in our system. And if it's consistently running, we want to shut it off and investigate. We have our LP gas and electric for our water heater. Those options there. LP, of course, run off of propane. Flip it. That system will ignite and heat our water. Electric will have to be plugged into 110 power in order for that electric to work. For both of these systems, we want to make sure our tank has water in it before we turn them on. Otherwise, we could cause damage. Another thing about our LP gas, when we kick it on, we may see a fault light up here that lets us know that we do have a fault on the LP side of the things. May want to turn it off, kick it back on, try it again, see if it doesn't get rid of that fault. Otherwise, we'll have to get that looked at. Our pump light there, I think I mentioned that comes on when we turn our water pump on. We'll also have several lights up here that indicate the levels of all of our tanks when we want to check those. And jump over to our driver's seat. And here in the front, of course, set up just like your car would be. We have our options from forward with our cruise control, a couple of options to work the menu up front. We have our mirror controls there on the side, our lights here, and if we open up this door, we can take a better look. We have our auxiliary start. That auxiliary start basically connects your chassis battery and your house batteries, almost like a set of jumper cables. When we push it, it will connect those batteries. That way, if our chassis battery is low, it'll basically jump those house batteries to it and help you start it in that event. Of course, power windows, power locks, and then when we move over, we have our AC system, traction control system off if we want. We have our built-in inverter system. We can go ahead and plug in a phone charger, whatever, USB, so on and so forth. This USB system right here will connect to our radio, and then of course we have our actual radio here. We hit home, we do have Bluetooth option. We have our camera system on here. We also have more settings in here that go over customization and everything else on your unit. Basically, you're going to be using it for your Bluetooth, your radio, your rear camera system, and that's pretty much it. You're also going to have left and right blinkers on here for safety in order to help you change lanes whenever you're traveling down the road. Now, you can flip your front seats around. It does take a little work to be able to do that. You have to kind of move them up, flip this switch down here at the bottom back, and as you are turning, you have to kind of scoot that seat around, lift the back up, and work it around to be able to get that seat where you need it. Scoot it forward all the way, lock it in. Now we can have more seating area for our living area. Driver's seat is the same way. Of course, you're fighting your steering wheel there. You have to lift it up, do a few more adjustments in order to get it to flip around. To go back, same thing. We're going to grab that lever, push it back, and then begin to work that seat around this way. Slide it back, slide it forward. And ready to travel. So above our driving area, of course, we do have bunk area. If we want to lift this up for more headroom getting in and out of our unit, we can. We're also going to have a storage net here that we can use. Pull it up. We have those seatbelt latches there at the top, and that'll provide us with more storage in our front cabin area. Now, we do have a switch over here on the side. This switch will turn lights off and on, and then the other one will raise and lower our cover for our front windshield. Our table can fold down into a bed. We'd go ahead and lift our cushions up and out of the way. We take our table, lift it up. There's a hinge on the back side. We have to separate it from there with those hooks, lift it out of there, and then we can drop our table down, of course, once our cushions are up, and it will sit down in that groove. We have an extra cushion in our front that we can set over the top for more sleeping. In order to put it back, we lift up, we angle that to the wall, and then now we are latched back there at the hinge. Of course, we have our manual recliners back here for our seats, and we have seat belts for all that stuff too. Jayco provides seat belts in all of those seating locations. In our kitchen area, we do have a retractable 110 USB charging port right there on the side. We're also going to have our 110 microwave with that fan option over that hood to exhaust air out. Remember, we have the vent on the outside. I want to make sure it's open. We have our glass top right here, provide us some more counter space. This is also how it needs to be when we travel. When we cook, we need to flip it up. We also have our burners down here with a little blue light. We can flip the switch and also turn on the light for our oven as well. No matter if it's off or on, you do have a little red ring that lights up whenever you initiate your burners. Now, to turn your burners on, you turn it to that little flame icon right there. We crank our igniter until it lights. Our oven is going to be the same thing, except we have to push that knob down when we get to the flame icon in order to light that pilot. We keep holding it down. Once that pilot is lit, hold it down for about 15-20 seconds. Then we can turn it to our desired temperature, and that burner tube should light up, and we can go ahead and cook. Now, the thing about our propane system is it is susceptible to getting air in the lines. This can happen after we've stored our unit, we turned our tanks off, or if we had to go ahead, or if we ran out of propane while using it, then we'll end up with air in our system. Really easy issue to fix. We come over here and we turn our propane on, we just light our stove, let it run for about 60 seconds, we're good to go. It's a great idea to do that before we operate things like our furnace or our water heater to prevent those things from going into a fault due to air in the system. Behind me, we have our Furrion 12-volt refrigerator controlled by our control knob here on the side. It goes from off to cold to colder, and we also have an off-grid option. That off-grid option is if we are off-grid, we're boondocking somewhere, we don't have 110, we want to go ahead and pull off of our 12 volts, we would go ahead and put it in off-grid, and it would slow down the work of that compressor. Now, we also want to keep in mind we don't want to open and close that fridge too often because that compressor isn't going to compensate for that much use. We also need to keep in mind that we do not have drain tubes on the fridge or the freezer, so when we're storing our unit, we want to make sure we defrost our freezer, wipe that down, as well as our refrigerator, reduce the risk for mold and mildew, air everything out. We're also keeping water from dripping out of these units and dripping and damaging our wood components around it, because manufacturers, of course, aren't going to repair or cover any damage like that. So make sure we're maintaining our fridge properly. Here for entertainment, of course, we have our TV. It can pull out. We pull that latch down there at the bottom, and our TV can pull out, and we can adjust it wherever we need to go. Now, of course, you're going to have a couple of options for here. You're going to have your rooftop and satellite prep wiring already ran from the rooftop. We can see that down here. That'll be right here, and then we're also going to have antenna cable hookup right here. Now you're going to see two lights up there. Our antenna and cable are going to come from the same port. These lights are two different things. One is our antenna boost. So if we don't have cable from the campground, we're searching for antenna channels on our TV. Want to make sure that light is on. It will boost the antenna and pick up more channels in your area. If we're scanning for cable channels, want to make sure that light is off. That way it doesn't scramble the channels coming from the campground. The button on the left is going to power up our WineGuard LTE Wi-Fi system if we decide to upgrade to a router system that will ping off of cell phone towers, and we can have Wi-Fi with us wherever we go if we decide to subscribe to that. Next, we have our 110 fireplace. We'll go over a little operation on that now. Here we have our fireplace. We have a sensor right up here in the top right. We have to aim that remote at to turn it on. We have our Celsius and Fahrenheit temperature we can change to, and right here this little flame icon is going to change the dimness of our flame. If we want to change the lighting of our flame, we hit the light bulb on the screen down here at the bottom, and it'll give you some different options right there. If we want to operate our heater on a timer, once again, electric heater, it is going to be this button right here. It looks like a clock, and when we push it, we can see some times pop up: 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, all the way up to 8, and then it will go to 0 hours, letting you know that that timer is off. If we want to change our temperature, we'll use one of these two buttons at the bottom, and we can see once again we have a temperature down there, and we will go ahead and raise it until it kicks on, or lower it, we want it to kick off, or we can keep going until it says on, and that heater will stay running all the time. We kick it up one more time, and it's going to say OF, meaning that that system is off. Right next to our TV, we're going to see our thermostat that's going to control our AC in the front. We're going to have another one in the back that's going to work the same way, except this one is going to control our gas furnace as well. The rear will only control the rooftop air in our bedroom. So pretty self-explanatory. We can turn it to cool or heat and adjust our thermostat right here as far as what we want our temperature to be. We're also going to have our fan option, which means our fan is just going to constantly run. It's not going to cool, not going to heat, none of that. We also have our fan option over here that will control when we are in the cool mode, whether we want our fan to stay on when the compressor runs and turn off when the compressor turns off, or if we want that fan to run all the time. For those two options, that would be auto, to where it shuts off and on would stay on all the time, and we have low and high. Our heat is going to kick on, and that will run our Dometic furnace, and that air is going to come out of our vents down there at the bottom. Only our cool air is going to come out of our rooftop AC. All right, we're in our bathroom. We have our shower, pretty self-explanatory, hot and cold. We're also going to have the lever on that shower head on off. We can use that when we are dry camping or we don't have a dump station. We're trying to conserve the amount of water we're pulling from our fresh tank, the amount of water we're putting into our gray tank. It's just an easier way to turn that water off and on between lathering up and showering off versus trying to find that sweet spot on the hot and cold lever. We can use that if we want. We also have our fan vent up there in the roof. We can kick that on with a little switch here on the side. We want to try to reduce the amount of heat and humidity in here whenever we take a shower. That way we can reduce the risk for mold and mildew. Our toilet right here is operated by a little lever there on the side. Push it down and it will flush. Now, we talked about it outside for dumping. All that's going to go into our black tank. Other thing we want to put in there is sewage, toilet paper, and chemicals. As far as sewage, we're talking about number 1 and number 2, liquids and solids. Number 1, you can hit that pedal, flush it down the drain, no problem. Number 2, we have solids. Want to fill that bowl 1/2 to 3/4 of the way up, and we can do that by barely pushing that pedal down. Water will start to come out and start to fill up that bowl. Want to make sure we have enough water in there to help push those solids all the way down to the drain and reduce the risk for clogging. Next thing is RV toilet paper only, so it degrades properly in that tank system, and our chemicals will help it do that. Here we have our power control system. Due to this being a 30 amp service and we have 2 AC systems on our unit, we're going to need to shed power sometimes whenever we operate things like our microwave or our water heater and stuff like that. Now it can automatically do it. Now before we go into that, we'll comment about hitting our select button. We'll also change the amperage according to what we're plugged into. So if we're in a 15 or 20 amp service, we need to change that, or a 30 amp service, change it to whatever that amperage service has, so our system knows how to operate properly. Our last option will tell us how many amps we're actually pulling with our current 110. Down below that we have our inverter system. We can kick that on and it is going to show us our voltage. So currently we're reading at 12 volts on our battery system. We are plugged into shore power. If we were inverting, if we wanted to invert, which means we're changing 12 volt power to 110 power, we kick this on and that system will automatically start swapping that over, so we can run some of our small appliances even if we don't have a 30 amp or 15 or whatever type service wherever we're at. Down below that, of course, we have another option right here for our rear slide out to run that in and out. We have numerous lights throughout our unit as well. Just before we step into our bedroom, we have our 110 center right here with all of our 110 breakers, and then we also have our 12 volt panel right here with all of our 12 volt fuses. Now each of them are labeled as to what they control, so anytime we have any issues with those components, we want to come here first, check our fuses for any blown fuses, and then also our breakers. Now one thing about our breakers is we are going to have that GFCI breaker there at the bottom with that test button. That is going to control all of our wet locations. Now that is susceptible to tripping due to too much amperage being pulled because we have too many heating element type components plugged in, such as griddles, coffee makers, hair dryers, and so on and so forth. So it's fairly common for that to trip if we have too much stuff plugged in, and then it can also trip because those locations have a wet outlet. So if we reset it and it trips right off the bat, we need to unplug some of those appliances or go check the outlets and make sure they're not wet. Not much to go over in our bedroom. We do have another TV and another thermostat to control this AC. Now both AC assemblies are going to be the same. You're going to have these vents on each side, and those are quick dump vents. If we open them up, it can cool this area off quicker. If we want air to flow through our AC ducts there at the top throughout our entire unit, we want to make sure we close those off and it forces the air through there. Now we're also going to have our filters right here on the side. We pull these 2 tabs down, we can clean out our filters so we're not restricting any air to our AC and it can run efficiently. That wraps up everything on our unit.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us, and keep watching here at Great American RV Superstores, where we bring the how-to you.